90 days is a magical benchmark for a dating situation. Getting to it can be hard, getting past it can be even harder. This is my story about making dating situations last. What kind of work should we be putting into our relationships, and how can we make sure that that work pays off? What up, though? I am Jay the Gentleman. That's at JAI the Gentleman on IG, and it's Wednesday, so this is a new episode of Dear Black Gay Man Podcast. It's our short, bullshit-free step out of our comfort zone to talk about all the emotional ups and downs along the journey to happiness. Hopefully, this is our midweek reminder of how dope it is to be black gay men who love black gay men. I am Jay the Gentleman. This is Dear Black Gay Men Podcast. Now, let's get into the episode. Today, I'm going to tell you the story about a relationship I worked hard for. But first, at Alexander Love _love says, I love the conversations you provoke on this platform. Very well said. And at YZ says, there is nothing wrong with being single or preferring being single and remaining single. A person should make what choices they are comfortable with rather than following societal pressures, preferences, and expectations. And to that, I say thank you. Last week, I talked about being single and the importance of the single chapter in our dating lives. I want to shout out to Infinite Manny 3534 for giving us this topic. Since pronouns aren't assumed ever, I'll just say that they commented. Can you talk about men who have been single and being their best selves and still aren't able to find anyone or anything? The picker isn't doing anything, yet we are out here trying to find love. Well, here we go, friend. When we're single, that's the time to do our single work. Infinite Manny called it single work is the process of understanding better who we are, so we can be better for our relationships. The quality of our relationships really depends on the quality of our single lives. You can watch that episode of the podcast by clicking on the screen, or the link is in the description. That work, the living your best life part, is half of the essential work of making a relationship last. The key, however, is the other half of the work that so many of us neglect. Aha! Good topics like this one hit me either right after I bust a good nut or somewhere around 4 o'clock in the morning when I can't sleep, which usually leads me back to trying to bust a good nut. For that reason, this episode of Dear Black Gay Men Podcast is brought to you in part by our newsletter. Dear Black Gay Men Weekly is a quick conversation with me, what's going on in my life, how did I come up with the topic, and some insider tea about the podcast. As always, it's your favorite content creator's favorite content, and it's absolutely free to join. Just visit dearblackgaymen.com/weekly. The link is in the description. Now, let's get back into the episode. Working on yourself is one part of building a relationship. It sounds backwards, but let's back up. Get some context. I believe there are two kinds of work necessary for a successful relationship. I'm using the word relationship in there very, very loosely. This work is necessary for any type of connection between you and somebody else. It could be a friendship. It could be a friends with benefits situation.
Had my Hello Kitty snapping and cracking and popping.
It could be you wanting to build a better relationship with your siblings or with your cousins or your family. Anytime you're trying to connect with another person, these two kinds of work are essential. We're going to call it working in your relationship and working on your relationship. Working in your relationship is all the stuff you do for yourself to be your best self. It's all the work we do to make ourselves dateable. Now, being an eligible bachelor or being dateable might not be the motivation behind a lot of this, but it's definitely an output. These are the things like I get my hair cut every week, standing appointment on Saturdays, or making manicures and pedicures a part of your regular self-care routine. It could be bigger shit like going to therapy and working through all your bullshit, discovering your kinks and fetishes in a way that you can explain and include others in. Working in your relationship is all the work you do to live your best, most centered, most whole life. Working in a relationship, though, starts way before the relationship starts. Most relationships fail too soon because the people in them think that the work of a relationship starts with the relationship. But if a good man likes someone who is put together, odds are you need to put yourself together long before he can find you. If a good man likes someone emotionally aware, odds are you need to open your eyes to your emotions long before your paths can cross. Working in your relationship is a way of manifesting that good relationship long before it happens.
Gotta see it before you see it, or you never will see.
Working in your relationship can happen before you get a man, but there is a higher level of work necessary to keep a man. Working in the relationship, we've already said it, it's all the work you do for yourself. Working on your relationship is the work you do for your partner. If working in your relationship is understanding exactly what your love language is, working on your relationship is learning to fluently speak your partner's love language in a way that they can receive and process. If working in your relationship is reading a book because you're interested in it, working on your relationship may be reading a book that your partner is interested in.
Look, it's in a book.
Working in a relationship is doing things because I love me. But working on your relationship is doing things because I love you. Now, we get funny acting when we start talking about love. For some reason, a lot of us, most of us, we want to be in love, but curating our lives in the pursuit of love makes us feel some kind of way. We want to portray as if no one but me matters to me. We just out here. Put little intention behind our interactions. Then we wonder why we go to sleep in these big ass houses, driving these beautiful cars, single as a last flat in your 10-piece wing basket.
10-piece hot, them pepper sprinkles, extra wet, extra crunchy.
Let me tell you this story. This happened to me a while ago. So I'm out, right? This dude sees me. I can see him seeing me. He comes up, chops it up. He's an attractive young man. I shouldn't say young, he's older than me, but he's an attractive dude. Asks for my number. I give it to him, right? Then the next day, we start texting. So I ask, are you serious about, kicking it, or were we just shooting the shit? He says, well, I'm down for whatever. First red flag. And so I say, but you asked for my number, bro. He says, yeah, you let me know. Got it. Ooh. It just hurt my head to think about it. What I immediately got from the interaction is he hasn't worked in his relationship. When we work in our relationships, especially as single people, we come out of that work with a sense of intention.
Either we're going to be together or you're going to be with me.
The work should help us become courageous enough to say what we want, or self-aware enough to let us know when we on some bullshit.
Is you crazy? Is you not crazy?
If we master working in our relationships, especially when we're single, once we find someone to work on a relationship with, everything goes better. Now, there is a third highest level of work for a relationship. You can click the screen or the link in the description to read all about it on dearblackgayman.com. But the bigger lesson, I think, is how we weaponize this idea of I went through a long season where I asked everybody, who gonna check me? I did that because I had just gotten out of a long relationship, a very serious relationship, where I changed everything about myself to be with this man. That season's Jay thought that was what was necessary. I thought this man wanted dominance, so I tried to be the man. I thought he wanted a provider, so I worked my ass off to impress this man. I thought he wanted masculinity, well, I failed at that one. I changed so much about myself that I had to go through this season of absolutely doing me to get back to me. I went into this season saying,
Who gonna check me, boo?
and I came out of that season rigid and unwavering. It could sound like I found out who I am. I got back to me. I did get clear on my boundaries, and I learned to enforce them. I stopped obsessing over what people thought of me, and I leaned heavily into what I think of myself. If I wanted to wear something, did. If I wanted to eat something, did. If I wanted to be self-aware and evolved one day, was. If I wanted to be the toxic nigga that fucks you silly and leaves,
That's your business.
Our default setting is establishing boundaries and fighting for the world to respect them. That is important work, fighting for who we are. It's necessary, but that can't be our norm. Sis. A small piece of that is saying I have to defend my self-concept, my identity, because it's fragile and weak. Actual self-awareness, when you're ready for it, doesn't have a fight in it. I realize that I can think one way about myself. I can think of myself as masculine. I can think of myself as feminine or a switch or a dom or a sub or this or that. I can be a butch queen one day and trade the next. I can be whatever picture of myself that I form within myself. You, the person that I like, the person that I'm inviting into my life, can see something totally different in me. And both those things can be true. When we get self-aware enough, we may welcome the opinions of others, people that matter to us, because they're going to see something in us in a way that we may never see it in ourselves. We might get to the I know who I am phase, but I think the problem with that is that a lot of us call that self-awareness, and then we stop growing. Because we can afford our best life and we don't need a man for anything, it must be self-awareness. We must be self-actualized. But the gotcha is we really just created a life where we are self-isolated. You've built your best life so that you will be self-reliant, self-sufficient, self-dependent, self-sustaining, and then got the nerve to wonder why at the end of the day, all you got to depend on is self. Now, that's not to say that we should just be down bad out here waiting for some man to come save us, because that is the recipe for disaster. The only difference between that kind of high school grade self-awareness and your advanced degree in self-awareness is intention. If you travel in the world because I'm not waiting on no man, that's one thing. But if you're getting these punches in your passport because one day you want to eventually share these kind of experiences with someone special, that's a totally different thing. If you buying that house because niggas ain't shit and I can't put my life on hold for no man, that's one thing. But if you buying that house because you see yourself sharing it with someone and building a family maybe, that's another thing. But for some reason, a lot of us lack the courage to admit to ourselves that we want something or someone. We prefer to be intentionless, directionless, down for whatever.
I'm not looking for a man.
We meander through our dating lives in hopes of stumbling upon Mr. Right because we believe that we have to have the relationship before we can start working on the relationship. But sis, the work of relationship starts long before you find a man. If we sit back and really take stock of why our situations, why our entanglements, why our dating circumstances ended in months and never made it to years, it could be our intentions along the journey to happiness were lopsided. I know that some people are going to be listening to this and thinking, Jay, I got my shit together. But the hard part is both of us have to be doing the work in the relationship so that we can get together and work on the relationship. If one person is evolved and the other person's down bad, then obviously it's not going to work. So when you're wondering why your relationships don't last, and that's if you can find a relationship to begin with, because it's hard out here for a pimp. Perhaps you're doing too much work on the relationship when you get it and not enough work in the relationship to find it. So dear Black gay men, start now. That was our show. Tomorrow I'm going live with Mr. Censored on Twitter, and he's going to be answering all of our questions about nudism and his event Flesh ATL. I am Jay the Gentleman. That's at JAI the Gentleman on IG. If this episode made you feel a little more dope, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, like the video, and share it with someone who needs a dopeness reminder. Dear Black Gay Men Podcast is new every Wednesday. You can stream it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks in advance for a 5-star rating on Apple on your favorite podcast platform. We really are looking for 5-star ratings because it's helping us find new listeners. We go live on YouTube Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern with our interview series, Dear Black Gay Men Live. So follow at Dear Black Gay Men on socials so you never miss a thing. I am Jay the Gentleman. This has been Dear Black Gay Men Podcast, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.